On March 22nd, 2018, a strange call to 911 was received.
I'm County 911. What's the address of the emergency?
This is Don Sipple calling, and I have a young lady that just came to my house, and somebody attacked her, and she needs a doctor. Her clothes are all torn, and...
Okay, what is the address you're located at?
E7614, 430th Avenue.
Okay, and is she injured?
Yeah, she's injured. Her mouth is kind of got some blood around it, and her clothes are all torn.
Okay, and she's by herself?
She's by herself. She walked to my house here just recently.
Okay, and can you ask her what her name is?
Just hold on a second.
Okay.
What's your name, ma'am? What? You don't know? She's in kind of bad shape. She just says she don't know.
Okay, let me put you on hold. Do not hang up. I'm going to start some help, okay?
Sure.
The voices that you are hearing in this phone call belong to an elderly farmer named Don Sipple and a 20-year-old woman named Ezra McCandless. As alluded to during the call, Don had just discovered a distraught Ezra covered in mud, blood, and bruises strolling onto his farm property, which is positioned almost directly between Menominee and Eau Claire, Wisconsin. After receiving the call, officers were promptly dispatched to Don's address. When they arrived, they encountered the same distraught young lady, but she did seem to be slightly improving. When officers asked her what exactly happened, Ezra told them that all she could currently remember was that an ex-boyfriend named Alex had attacked her. Moments later, she was at Don's farm.
Where are all you hurting from right now?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Ezra was then transported to the local hospital. On her way, she repeatedly requested that officers contact a man named Jason Mangle for her. She stated that this was another ex-boyfriend who she would like by her side during this whole ordeal. While some officers waited alongside Ezra, other officers were dispatched to search the area surrounding Don's farm for any sign of Alex. They also tried to phone Alex, check his residence, and contact his parents. Alex was nowhere in sight. Because of this, officers decided to question Ezra even more while she was at the hospital. At first, she was too emotional to answer any questions, but she eventually regained her composure.
I don't know. I'm trying so hard in my head, trying to get things to come to me, but it's like it keeps getting blocked out and blocked out.
Ezra kept up this story for the rest of the evening and into the next morning. Basically, she continued to state that she only had glimpses of memories going through her mind. These glimpses were of Alex attacking her. She stuck to these claims until later that morning. When officers returned to the location surrounding Don Sipple's property, they passed by another property that was gated, that appeared to have footprints leading quite a ways down a dirt path. The officers decided to step out of their vehicle and walk down this dirt path. They then discovered Alex's body hanging partially out of Ezra's car, covered in blood and stab marks. Within moments of observing the body, officers knew that this story was going to get messy. As Ezra lay in the hospital, officers do some research into both Alex and Ezra's history. So, before we go any further, we need to go back about 10 months earlier. Ezra McCandless met a man named Jason Mangle at the beginning of 2017. He was 13 years older and served as a medic on the military reserve. Despite the age gap, the two hit it off as they were both what they considered free souls, and they were both also very spontaneous. They moved in together after dating for just over a month. They then became nearly inseparable, doing everything together, other than when they had personal responsibilities or work. They had one specific location, which they frequented on a regular basis. This location was the two's favorite little coffee shop, Racy's Coffee Shop, located in downtown Eau Claire. It was during the 8 months following Ezra's move into Jason's apartment that the two became regulars of this coffee shop. During this time, they met a young man at a bar named Alex Woodworth. Coincidentally, Alex worked at the coffee shop and lived only a couple blocks away from it. He was known to be very chatty, nerdy, and very into philosophy. He was also a frequent churchgoer who loved to help others, be it animals or people. When Jason, Ezra, and Alex crossed paths, the three instantly hit it off. Alex and Jason became very close friends, Meanwhile, Ezra and Alex became a little bit more than that. As Ezra maintained her relationship with Jason, she also kept up a secret relationship with Alex. The two would spend time together every time that Jason had to leave for his military work, and their relationship went from what can be described as vanilla to experimental BDSM very quickly. However, this entanglement could only go on for so long before Jason found out and confronted both Alex and Ezra. Jason and Alex remained friends, while Ezra decided to break it off with both men, though she was in no rush to move out of Jason's apartment. This takes us to March 1st, 2018. Just 3 weeks before the discovery of Alex's body. On this day, Jason was arriving home from a 2-week military training exercise when he came upon a frantic and emotional Ezra. Ezra was crying profusely and could barely speak. Ezra stated that while Jason was away, she went drinking with one of Jason's friends. During that night, this friend assaulted Ezra, taking advantage of her as soon as they both started to feel drunk. She stated that at some point, she realized that she drank far too much and started drifting in and out of consciousness. She then felt herself being carried up to a bed before blacking out entirely. She said that she felt very emotional regarding the entire issue, but was too scared of how Jason would react. So before telling Jason, she decided to contact Alex to speak with him about it first. So on another evening, she went to Alex's house to vent about this horrible encounter, in which time, apparently, Alex tried to make a move on her. This time, she felt that she was being taken advantage of, mainly due to her emotional state. She then stormed out and went home. Upon hearing all of this, Jason was infuriated. Although he and Ezra had already broken up, Ezra was still living with him, and he felt that they were still close. So, when he heard that his friends had done this, he immediately drove both himself and Ezra to the police to file a report. Ezra had taken part in an interview regarding this encounter.
Started getting really tipsy. He kept telling me to be quiet, like she kept shushing me. It's really scary.
Okay.
An investigation began into the claims made by Ezra. During this investigation, officers went through Ezra's phone and text message history and spoke to both Jason and Alex. While sifting through Ezra's messages, officers found text messages between Ezra and this other friend that appeared as though Ezra may have been fairly suggestive with him. They had also found past messages which alluded to a previous sexual encounter between the two. This created some doubt surrounding Ezra's allegations. When the officers spoke to Jason, they confronted him with the information that they had uncovered, and Jason admitted that he was aware that the two had slept together in the past, but based on Ezra's story, he felt that this time was different. When the officer spoke to Alex, Alex went on to claim that Ezra had admitted to him that the encounter with the other guy was totally consensual. However, she regretted it the minute that she left and decided to spin the narrative. After speaking with Alex, officers expressed to Ezra what they had learned and decided that they had no grounds to make any arrests or press any charges, and the investigation was dropped. Obviously, Ezra became fairly upset with Alex following his interview with the police, as now she felt that Jason would only think that she was a liar and a manipulator trying to trick him into getting back with her, which turned out to be a fairly precise assumption, as within the week following the case being dropped, Jason insisted that Ezra move out as he was tired of the mind games and constant stress. So Ezra did just that. She moved out of Eau Claire and back into her parents' house, which also brings us back to March 22nd, 2018, the same day that Ezra showed up on Dawn Sippel's doorstep. During the day, Jason was relaxing at Racy's, drinking a cup of joe and browsing the internet, when all of a sudden, Ezra appears in the coffee shop. Jason is caught off guard, as he was not expecting to see her so soon following the move. But Ezra appeared to have other plans in mind. Jason also notices that Ezra has a scary look in her eye, so he approaches her and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Ezra replies, "Oh, I'm just here to see Alex. We're going to hang out and talk about things, and I just want to show him some art that I've done, and that I'm back to being my old self." She then leaves, hops in her car, and drives over to Alex's house. At this point, Jason is growing increasingly concerned, as he was aware just how upset Ezra was with Alex less than 2 weeks prior. He also felt that her demeanor was very intense. So as Ezra headed on her way to Alex, Jason decided that he should hop on his bike and ride over to Alex's himself to monitor the situation from a distance. In an unlucky turn of events, a janitor witnessed Jason riding his bike around Alex's building and felt that he looked suspicious, so he called 911. Officers quickly arrived on the scene, which gives us an inside look into exactly what happened during those moments.
You said they saw you park your bike over here?
Yeah.
And then walk over there, look
Yeah.
around in that car. Do you know that person that lives there?
It's my girlfriend's car, or my
Okay.
ex-girlfriend. We're kind of in a situation, and when she talked to me this morning, I was worried because the guy that lives there is involved in an assault case that she's with, or
She's the victim of?
she's the victim of an assault that happened, and when she went to him for consolement, I was gone on military orders.
Okay.
She went to him to talk to him about stuff, and then he kind of took advantage of her too, and she wanted to talk to him, I think today, about some stuff, and I was paranoid because she had like fire in her eyes.
Okay.
So
Who's the girlfriend?
Ezra McCandless.
Okay.
I was just worried because, like,
Was the door standing open over there when you got there on the car?
I knocked like 3 times. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear a scuffle or
Okay.
anything. So knocked, yelled, opened the door, and I heard her say, "Let him help you. Let him help you." So then I said, "Hey, is everything okay? Is everyone all right now?" I mean, I'm a medic in the military, so like, I was paranoid. I was paranoid that someone was going to do something irrational.
Okay. And they're in the house on the corner here, or?
Yeah, they're on. I think they're fine though. I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
I just saw the door to the car was standing open too. Was
Yeah,
that
I wanted to
open
turn
when-
her car off. Her car was running, so that's why I was like worried because it was running, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Is everything okay?
Okay. Do you have any ID with you?
Yeah. I don't think he's dangerous, but I don't know.
Do you know what his name is?
Alex Woodsworth?
Okay.
Or I think it's Woodsworth or Woodsworth.
Okay. You can go over by your bike. Hi. Is everything okay here? Yeah. Okay. Somebody called us kind of worried because they saw Jason come over here and he was going in the car and they weren't sure what was going on.
No, everything's fine.
Everything's fine? Okay. Do you guys have any ID with you?
Yeah.
I got to write a report here that I came over and talked with you guys. They were just a little worried because they saw the car running over here and they weren't sure what was going on and all that jazz.
Sorry for all this, like...
It's okay. It's okay. I'd rather come here and check and it be nothing than have something bad happening.
The officers feel that the situation warrants no further police involvement, so after checking everybody's identification, the officers head on their way. The eeriest part of this footage is that Jason can be seen entering the frame and having his final conversation with Alex before the second police cruiser drives off. This is the last moment that Alex Woodworth was seen alive. Less than 24 hours later, as Ezra McCandless lay in a hospital bed, officers had just discovered Alex's body, and so they now had more questions for Ezra. Conveniently, parts of Ezra's memory start to come back, and Ezra states that while Alex was driving, Alex pulled a knife on her and grabbed her left arm. He then used the knife to cut the word boy into it.
He started like carving something into my arm. He used to call me like boy a lot and stuff like that. And I was just kind of like, I don't really identify that way anymore.
Ezra told the officer that she used to strictly identify as a boy. And when Alex heard that she used to do so, he really latched on to that idea. Sometimes he would even get a bit pushy, asking her to continue doing so. The officers then looked over the wound on Ezra's arm and realized fairly quickly that the story wasn't adding up. She claimed that Alex was sitting in the driver's seat while she was in the front passenger seat. He then used his right arm to grab her left arm and begin carving. If that was the case, it would only make sense that Ezra's arm was extended while Alex made these cuts. That would result in the word boy being flipped. Officers then confronted Ezra and asked if she made that injury to herself.
He didn't do that to you, did he? You carved the boy into your own arm. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost as if this confrontation rebooted her memory, Ezra is now full of details regarding what happened. She begins to tell her story, claiming that after the two pulled over in the field, they ended up in the back of the car. While hanging out in the back, Alex made a move on her. When Ezra did not reciprocate, Alex pulled out the knife.
He started cutting my pants open and stuff, and I didn't know what to do. And it was really scary. He just kept trying to attack me, and I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Ezra then stated that she grabbed the knife by its blade with extreme grip, managed to get the knife out of Alex's hand, and then did whatever she had to do to defend herself and get the hell out of there.
He kept trying to grab me in the back of the car, so I just started to defend myself as fast as I could.
You said you had the knife. Where were you cutting him?
I just was going anywhere and everywhere I could.
Okay.
He just kept grabbing me and grabbing me and grabbing me.
Ezra was eventually taken to the police station to finish providing her statement, at which time she detailed the entire sequence of events as she remembered them. Her story was starting to get a little bit twisted.
Where's the first place you think you stabbed him?
I think the first place I stabbed him was in the head.
Okay. Okay, and then walk me through the order you think you stabbed him.
I think I stabbed him in the head, and then he just kept grabbing me and grabbing me.
Okay.
So I think I stabbed him in like this leg by the genital region, and then the stomach and the sides and stuff like that. And then I remember stabbing in this region inside the chest and neck region, and then...
Was that outside the car?
That was inside the car. And then I fell, because my shoes fell off, because I was kicking and everything, and he got out of the car. And then he went to grab me again, and I stabbed him in like the side by the ribs and stuff. And then it's like after that I just couldn't breathe, and I just started breathing and breathing and breathing, and then it just got really dark and scary. And I woke up and I peed my pants and everything, and I didn't know what was going on, and he was just laying there, so I started running.
Okay. How come you didn't tell me this yesterday when we talked, Ezra?
Because I didn't, it's too scary.
I know it's scary, but we needed the truth, right? See, it's better to come and tell us the truth so we know what happened.
Because it's just so scary and I can't get it out of my head.
No. And we're sorry that you went through this.
And it just keeps replaying and replaying and replaying, and I wish it would go away.
Have you talked to any of the doctors about this, what happened?
No.
Okay, well, that's probably going to be a good place to talk. Okay. When you were stabbing him, were you trying to kill him?
I didn't want him to go away.
Okay.
I wouldn't go away.
Crime scene analysts quickly determined how they believed the altercation took place, based on the evidence found at the crime scene. The first thing to note is that the majority of blood was found on the ground outside of the vehicle, which contradicts everything that Ezra states happened inside the vehicle. They also found that Alex had 0 defensive wounds, making it appear as though he was caught off guard entirely when he was stabbed. The amount of wounds found on Alex was also quite excessive, as not only was he stabbed upwards of 15 times, he was also discovered with his genitalia severely mutilated. Another big problem was that Ezra claimed that she grabbed the knife by the blade during Alex's attack and managed to muscle it out of his hands. However, the wounds on Ezra's hands were only superficial, which told the officers that this part of Ezra's story was also highly unlikely. Basically, based on the crime scene combined with Alex's and Ezra's injuries, things were not looking good for Ezra, as investigators quickly believed that this was more than likely a premeditated murder with a poor attempt at covering it up. Following this interview, Ezra McCandless was charged with the first-degree premeditated homicide of Alex Woodworth. Ezra's trial began 18 months later, in October of 2019, and Ezra clearly thought that she was the star of the show. Instead of being the same traumatized and broken person that we witnessed throughout most of her police interactions, Ezra now appeared content, calloused, and in a twisted way, even appeared to be a bit proud. Ezra's ex-boyfriend Jason testified during Ezra's trial, and as he approached the bench, Ezra almost appeared a bit flustered by his extravagance. All professionalism went out the window, while she appeared to simply adore his presence, cracking smiles and making awkward, intimate eye contact as he answered his questions.
Is the person you know as Ezra McCandless in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you identify where she's located by just describing an item of clothing, please?
Pink blazer.
During Jason's testimony, Ezra continued to play her mind games. At one point, she removed her pink blazer, only to reveal a cardigan that Jason had purchased her during their relationship. Jason was dumbfounded, but finished up his questioning. In a shocking and questionable decision by the defense, Ezra is then called to the stand to testify. During her testimony, she displayed absolutely no sign of remorse, guilt, or even grief for the loss of somebody that she once called her boyfriend. Instead, she continued her smiles and answered each question with her chin held high, almost appearing as if she was enjoying herself.
Good morning. Would you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
My name is Ezra McCandless. EZRAMCCANDLESS.
Okay, Ezra, I'm going to ask you to speak really clearly into the microphone because you're soft-spoken.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody can hear you. All right?
All right.
I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is, why Ezra McCandless? Why that name?
Why Ezra McCandless? Well, I have gone through a lot of changes in my life regarding identity and what really fits me. And I tried on a few names, but I found ultimately that Ezra fit perfectly for who I am.
What was your birth name?
My birth name was Monica J.
And did your name eventually become the last name Carlin?
Yes.
Okay. So why did you decide why you changed your last name?
I changed my last name, not to change my last name because of family's sake, but I changed it because of the name McCandless is from an individual named Christopher McCandless from Into the Wild he's known for. And his love for nature, his philosophies for life, they were very in tune and aligned with who I am. So I honored him by taking his last name.
And what about, and Into the Wild, just everybody might not know what it is, just in a sentence, tell us.
It's a novel, it's a book he wrote.
I'm going to ask you about meeting Alex.
All right. Yes.
Why don't you tell us how you met Alex Woodworth?
I met Alex Woodworth one night when I noticed him. He was writing alone inside a bar called The Joint. He just seemed very focused, and I thought it was interesting that he was alone amongst all these people, so focused on his writing. Alex and I started slow. We held hands, we hugged, and we shared a few kisses, and then eventually we became partners. I encouraged him to explore himself and things he might want. And we started practicing and doing these new things that he wanted. I took the role of submissive. It turned into what at times could be considered a BDSM relationship.
Was there ever a time back in your relationship in January or February where Alex used a knife when having with you?
Yes, he had cut a pair of my pants.
Ezra's attorney continued down this path of questioning, allowing Ezra to paint a very graphic picture of exactly how she felt Alex's interests progressed. Although the questioning eventually shifted to a darker tone, Ezra's smiley and proud demeanor stayed intact. Ezra's story also slightly changed during her testimony. Now, instead of her grabbing the knife by the blade, she was actually able to free it from his hands with a different technique.
I decided then to knee him in the groin, and he drops the knife at that point. Instantly, I grabbed the knife. I started stabbing him anywhere and everywhere I could.
What are you trying to do?
I just want to get away. I need to get out of the car. I need to get away as fast as I could.
So why do you keep stabbing him while you're still in the car?
Because he wouldn't let go. He wouldn't let me out. I was terrified.
Several medical experts, including one that specializes in trauma, as well as multiple crime scene analysts, all took the stand to testify regarding the story that the evidence told. To summarize, the prosecution wanted to show the jury that they believed that a heartbroken and revenge-fueled Ezra drove Alex into the middle of that farm property that evening. She then murdered him in cold blood and mutilated his body. She then spent approximately 2.5 hours staging the scene to look as if she was the one that was attacked. cutting her own clothes, covering herself in mud, and even faking several minor injuries. She then took the knife and threw it, took Alex's phone and smashed it, all as she headed on her way to Dawn Sippel's home. That's when her acting chops kicked in. And well, you know the rest. The defense had another story. The defense stood behind Ezra's claims of self-defense, stooping to a new low and destroying Alex's reputation as much as possible. They basically stated that an aggressive Alex that had gotten a taste for the BDSM lifestyle was ready to take what he wanted from Ezra regardless of whether or not she wanted it. He drove the two to the random location on the farm property, forced Ezra into the back seats, and then started to use the knife against her, cutting off her pants and her sweater. Ezra's amygdala kicked in full blast. Her fight-or-flight response chose to fight, and she then protected herself at all costs, blaming adrenaline for the extent of the damage that she caused to Alex. She then had an extreme trauma response to what she experienced, and blacked out the 2.5 hours following the incident. The next thing that she remembered was showing up at Dawn Sippel's doorstep. About 2 years following the death of Alex Woodworth, Ezra's trial came to a close, and the jury was sent to deliberation. And after only 3 hours of deliberating, they came back with a verdict. This footage is likely one of the most iconic pieces of content found in the Truecrime dossier, as the moment that the verdict is read, you can clearly see Ezra's astonished realization that her mind games and manipulations all led to this exact moment in time.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Ezra J. McCandless, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information. And the answer to the special verdict question is yes, use a dangerous weapon. Again, you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, is this your verdict? All right, I'm going to do what's called polling the jury, and I'm going to ask each of you if this is your verdict. And I'm going to ask you by your juror number.
Ezra McCandless was found guilty of the first-degree intentional homicide of Alex Woodworth, and on February 7th, 2020, she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 50 years.
Ms. McCandless, is there anything you'd like to say?
Hi. I would like to address Your Honor and the courts and Alex's family, but most of all, Alex's parents. I want to say how sorry I am that they have lost their son. But sorry doesn't cut it in my mind. That word is not enough and never will be enough for this loss, and I recognize that. I don't think I could ever find words that will be enough to express this, especially to them. The pain they feel is unimaginable. I want to express how sorry I am for this loss, because it is such a great loss. I recognize and completely acknowledge this pain, and I'm so sorry. I loved Alex very much, and I also feel a great loss. And I'm so sorry. And thank you for letting me say this. Thank you.
Ezra McCandless currently resides at the Tayachita Correctional Institute in Wisconsin.
A woman serving a life sentence for killing an Eau Claire man is requesting a new trial. 25-year-old Ezra McCandless was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility for parole after 50 years in February 2020. In November 2019, McCandless was convicted in the stabbing death of 24-year-old Alex Woodworth of Eau Claire. On Thursday, McCandless's attorneys filed a motion to vacate the conviction and order a new trial, citing ineffective counsel and numerous errors in the original trial. A hearing on the motion has been requested but is not scheduled at this time.